Oh, well, well, well. It's The Wheel of Time, Season 3, Episode 2 Overview. I've decided to record it this way because I had heaps of trouble with the last video overview that I did of Episode 1. Kept getting blocked on YouTube. I think I have found a good way around it by doing the reviews this way. So we're going to be able to look through and see some of the video. I'll talk about what I think are the really important things to remember of what we see in here. And we start the cold open magnificent. So Elizabethan, you can just so clearly tell that Andor is based on England. And we get what we're calling the Red Succession. Yep, bit of a play on Game of Thrones. And of course, if you're a book reader, then you understand that the Game of Houses, Deus Damar, in the Wheel of Time came before the Game of Thrones. So we're just going around in some nice little circles. Bit like a wheel, really. And it all looks so beautiful, doesn't it? You've got Morgase entering the hall, triumphant, all of the courtiers waiting. Baby Galard, 3 to 4 years old, runs up to her and she's smiling. It seems so perfect. Linny's got little baby Gawain, and oh, how beautiful. Well, not really, as we know. In fact, it was a succession war that led to this, and we end up slaughtering everybody after they swear fealty. So it's quite ruthless. We get to see that when Elayne spoke to Rand last episode, she told him that successions are much better if they're done without bloodshed. And now we know why. And when we talk about ruthless, you see, she nodded to Linny. Linny knew that she was planning to cut the throats, took the children in, and somehow, it's not so traumatic for little toddlers and babies to see people having their throats cut. If they don't see it, they just hear it. Oh my God. And the crowning. Ta-da, ta-da, the rose crown of the Andoran queens. And what I love is that the transition goes from the crowning of Queen Morgase to Elayne as a novice scrubbing the floors. Now she hears Perrin and Lyanna talking out in the corridors, and she sneaks out to do a little bit of listening in. They are talking there about trust. Who can we trust? And we get the procession of the royal family coming in to be presented to the Amyrlin seat. And it was just so hilarious. Did you notice it? They get to the door and Siuan deliberately makes them wait. Morgase is furious and Siuan is just sitting there. And when that person coughs in the background, oh, Morgase is ready to explode. Finally, the door opens and they are allowed to be presented to the Amyrlin seat. And just look at Morgase. She looks so Elizabethan. And we've got Gabriel beside her. And I tell you, nearly every book reader was actually taken in by Gabriel, not being sure was he actually Rahvin or not, because of the way everybody seemed to know him. So his compulsion was chef's kiss. I particularly loved how Lyanna stumbled on his name, and he's obviously weaved his compulsion so that Siuan doesn't stumble at all. She's already been taken in. So how much power does he have to be able to actually compulse all of those Aes Sedai all at the same time? It's really quite incredible. When Elaida is presented, it's just this gorgeous little subtle power play. I love it. And talk about if looks could kill. And into the threefold lamb we go. Avienda tells us that we have nearly finished crossing the spine of the world, so they're on their way to the threefold land, which is still mistakenly and rudely, I might add, being called the Waste far too often. And at the same time, Perrin and Loial, Bain and Chiad are arriving through the Manetheren Way Gate, and just look at how amazing that way gate looks. Loial has a key. Oh, and how good was that to get that side in? But then we get the interesting things being said about only somebody travelling with an Ogier or a dark friend would come through the ways. And Perrin says that he can smell a woman and a man and ashes. I've immediately presumed that that was Alanna and Maksim, but some people are saying, is that a red herring, and was it Lord Luke and Aiel? But I think we will hear Perrin saying something about the smell of Lord Luke. We'll talk more about that a bit later on. We also get to learn a little bit about the longing through Loial by Bain and Chiad ask him about it, which was great. And we get that beautiful reunion of Elayne with Galad and Gawain, but also of her actually meeting Gabriel for the first time. It was so freaky. I really did not like this. Oh, he gives me the creeps. And that's notwithstanding that I know he's Rahvin, he plays the part of the creep who would only win people over through compulsion to perfection. And she looks at him and she's like, Gabriel, and he's compulsed her. But then notice her with Galad. It's so like, yep, hi. And sure, they all get along in their own weird fucking royal way. Now, Nynaeve has tried to get the Yellow Sisters to heal Matt, and I really have to say this. What the actual fuck? That's Rhymer back. Know anything about how she got rescued from the Shanshan? Know nothing. I just, honestly, just one sentence from Nynaeve going, Rhymer, I was so worried about you. I'm so glad that you were rescued. Like, just something, anything. Anyway, they can't heal Matt. This is fantastic because we know that healing mental health conditions is going to become one of Nynaeve's specialties that is going to have the yellow Arja just absolutely floored. And so we've set that up. We've seen her witness Yellow Arja healing things that she couldn't heal before, like breakbone fever, but unable to do anything for Matt. I really loved seeing Swan and Morgase alone and speaking a lot more freely. Now, one of the things that I do really wonder is there also an element of compulsion in just how angrily Morgase walked into the tower? So we remember that last episode, Elayne sent a letter to Morgase. She doesn't say anything to Elayne about having received her letter. She just walks in and goes, where the fuck is my daughter? I'm taking over. But now that it's her and Swan on her own, and then when it's her and Elayne on their own, she is quite a different person. Now we can see that Swan is also different and saying, well, we have to do things for appearances. But I remember in the books, Gabriel had a direct effect on how Morgase would behave in different circumstances. So I wonder if there's a bit more to things in how we saw Morgase in the hall to how we see her now. And I did love that little comment, everyone's hiding something. Morgase then gets into Elayne and the awful ordeal, you have survived. It's time to come home. Elayne's not quite able to stand up to her, but she is going to get her balls. And yes, oh yes, the training montage we've been waiting for. And what I particularly loved was the way we got to hear, as they started their training again, Lan just say, parting the silk. So we know through what we saw of Rand with Errol and what we're now seeing of Rand with Lan, we know that those sword forms have names, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful callback for us. Now we get some of the first clues, because Moraine notices that Egwene has the fresh bruises on her neck, and Egwene of course thinks that it's Rhaena who's in her dreams, but it's not Rhaena who's in her dreams. In her dreams it turns out that it's Lanfear. Now I'm jumping a bit ahead, but honestly by now you've watched episode 3, so you know that it is definitely Lanfear, and all the clues are there, because Egwene would have been having piteous dreams about Rhaena, but Lanfear has spied on them, and it's only going to be in Tel'aran'rhiod that we're going to be able to have a physical result of that happening. Here comes our wonderful Avienda bearing lunch. And she hates the sword, so we've got all of that, which is exactly what we expect. But then I really love the way that we actually get the explanation of the prophecies of the Caracan. And with those prophecies, and then the perfection of Avienda saying, the prophecies don't say that I have to like doing this. Moraine even seems quite shocked about the differences in the Aiel prophecy to what she knows. Perrin and his company come into the Two Rivers. So much of the village he can recognise, and so much has also changed. But there's enough to recognise that he does experience some PTSD. Particularly as he comes into the forge, so many memories for him. Oh, it must be just so hard to be walking into that place after all that he's been through, to be back there and walking in there. And Maren Alvear. Now, we know that we've got a new actress, so we just have to deal with that. But she does take on the persona of Maren really quite beautifully. I love how tiny she is. She feels a bit more like Egwene to me, and she fills Perrin in very quickly on the fact that it's not safe. The White Cloaks are here. There's other people here, and they're up in the attic. I'm going to shove you up there with them too. And if you were wondering, the man and a woman in ashes, of course, had been the clue, but we come up into the attic and ta-da, it's Alanna wearing ashes and Maksim. What are you doing here? Really doesn't get any answers, but hey, that's a nice eye for you. Min is brought in to report to Verin, Lyanna and Swan, and she tells of her viewings. Lots of death in the tower. And no, it's not the crap that already happened. My viewings of what's still going to happen. And Swan's not overly taken in by all of this. And then just this mat scene cracks me up. Food like everywhere. Matt's there and he's doing a lot of innuendo with this novice and the Horn of Valyr. He thinks that he's just, king shit. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. No, she didn't invite someone to play with you. With her, there's way better to be seen. There's princes and they've got swords. Oh my God, so funny. Next thing, the girls are running off and Matt's got to get dressed as he takes himself down to the practice yards to see what's going on. And to say he is unimpressed, well, I think that is something of an understatement. And we get the gorgeous scene that we saw previously in the trailer, and it does not lead to the fight that we've been waiting for, but we just have to, build things up a little bit, really let the non-book readers understand the significance of that event by the time it does come. And how's this for the book readers? Siuan warding her box of documents in her study. Just so perfect. Now, I've had some interesting questions put to me about whether setting a ward is the same as tying off, say, a shield on somebody. And through discussions with my Delving the Chronicles podcast and reading things up, it's the same and it's not. Now, what you have to remember is the breaking of the world disrupted things incredibly, and knowledge was disrupted. So if the knowledge of how to set a ward was retained, but the knowledge of how to shield somebody and tie it off was not, there's not necessarily going to be an understanding of the similarity between the two, because what we've seen with the novice training is it's like, put your hands here, move this way, do that. Yes, that's it. Perfect. You did it. And there's a lot of almost learning things by rote. So I think that we're actually going to see some interesting things come up, and we may understand this better a bit later on. Nynaeve and Elayne are brought in and are told that you are to be my hounds. Nynaeve and Elayne are the only two people in the entire tower, not even Perrin and Lyanna, that Siuan believes she can actually trust. That's a pretty big thing, pretty amazing. Now we get some really heartbreaking stuff. Elayne is told that she's going through the archers, but her mother has told her that she's just going to be given the ring, just, here's your token ring, thanks for coming, and going home the next day. And she is torn. To be fair to Elayne, she wasn't expecting her mother to arrive. She wasn't expecting her to tell her that, even though she doesn't realise she wasn't expecting Gabriel. She wasn't expecting Gabriel, none of it. And with all that's happened, with all they've been through, she's trying to make the right decision, and she's about to make the wrong one. And Nynaeve gives that line, of, yeah, should have known. And that's just devastating for Elayne, because she truly likes Nynaeve and truly looks up to her and respects her. However, what we do know is that she decides to do the right thing. Meryn fills Perrin in more on what's been happening with the Trollocs and the White Cloaks, and that 100 gold coins are being offered for anyone who can bring in Perrin. And Tam, Bran and Aiel have taken Perrin's family to a safe place and have them hidden. Perrin specifically asks Alanna some questions about did she use the ways to get here, and she doesn't answer him. But when Loial asks about the wound on her shoulder, Maksim answers. So there is some shitfuckery going on, and I think we're supposed to feel quite suspect about Alanna. And I mean, we know Alanna from the books. She is suspect. Not in a dark friend way, but This dream sequence is just so perfect. We have Egwene, and she's dreaming of, who she thinks is Renna, but of course who is Lanfear pretending to be Renna. But at the same time, Rand is dreaming as well, and this was the most horrible. What Lanfear is doing to her is just like, my God. And yet, at the same time, Rand is dreaming of him and Selene back at the inn at the Foregate, and she's tempting him. She's truly a master of manipulation through Tel'aran'rhiod, because she's doing these two at the same time. So that is like just huge. And we finally get the confirmation that it's Lanfear. There she is. She looks so much like Renna. They've done an amazing job of this whole thing. But this is where there's also this really big change, because Egwene gets away from her, Egwene is already learning loads of stuff in Tel'aran'rhiod before she even starts to get any training. Honestly, the way she is trying to seduce Rand whilst beating up Egwene, just freaky. And here we go. Egwene dissipates. And she's in the threefold land. What the actual? And she turns around and it's Bear, who of course in the book is a miss. But how freaking perfect is this introduction that harks back to the book and is going to be amazing when we get to the Threefold Land, not just next episode, but episode 4 as well. I must say, this little scene with Min made me so sad. Mat is absolutely shattered that Min betrayed him, and he doesn't really know how to deal with it. And so him and Min just get into a big argument, and the result of that argument is they don't work anything out at all. And it doesn't help at all when Min tells Mat that Siuan has summoned him. Only convinces him more and more that she's only there because of what she's being told to do. Oh dear. But what a scene it is when Mat gets up to see Siuan. Oh, another really, really creepy part for me. Okay, it's not too creepy that Elayne decides to try the crown on because nobody's there. That's understandable. I mean, she's probably done this before anyway. What's creepy is for her mother's lover to be trying to get her drunk alone in their rooms. It's like, nope, 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 nope. And Mat comes in and has an audience with Siuan, and wasn't this like the best, honestly? If you thought Siuan was not on top of her game, she just embodies Siuan so perfectly here. We've had her being basically threatened by Egwene and bowing to it because Egwene's one of the only ones she trusts and she's desperate to have her working for her. We've had her halting a queen in the hall and then having some reasonably open, quiet discussions with her. And then we have her deal with Matrim Cawthon. And Donal really shows his brilliant acting abilities as he plays Mat with the, nope, I would never. And when she finishes it all, you know, someone could just kill you and take the horn and you're no longer the horn sounder. Oh, would you like me to look after it for you? And suddenly it's like, okay, I finally get it. Yes, I would like that very much. Thanks. Elayne gets back to speak to her mother after her testing, and it's a really terrific scene because her mother, Morgase, is not happy, but Elayne is able to put her argument forward logically, and Morgase is able to accept it. I really appreciated that because I thought it really showed the characters of them well, that Morgase, without Gabriel again in the way, is a reasonable person. And they mention Tigraine. Oh yes. Terrific conversation between Rand and Moraine. And once again, Rand teaches her some things. You don't fucking know everything, Moraine. And I love how we can see that bit of a visual of the one power weaving around him as fire and the oily taint. So that Moraine has to say, no, sorry, I don't know. Sucked in. The farewell scene with Morgase is gorgeous too. So the upshot of all of this stuff is she is now leaving both Galad and Garwin, as well as Elaida, and going back to Andor alone with Mr. Creepy Pants. That is like just such a freaky feeling, because we know what he's going to do next. We absolutely know. And I've had some interesting discussions about whether or not his idea was to get her here and dump everyone and take her back alone, or whether he did want to come and get Elayne and manipulate her and separate her from the tower. I'm really not sure which of those two is the most likely. And as Morgase now turns to leave, you can see the way she's talking again, and you can see Gabriel in the background behind. Is that all just for show, or is Gabriel involved? Now watch Elayne bow. Deep bow for the Queen, and turns, looks at Swan like, And the final scene. Here we are finishing the crossing of the spine of the world. We get our first view of the waste. And just as that seems amazing, Rahvin is like, who the fuck did you tell? And they're all like, what do you mean? And here come the Aiel. We truly get to meet them for the first time. Look at Egwene's face. There's Bear, who she had just recently met in her dreams only the night or maybe 2 nights before at the most. And that's the end of the episode. Well, that's my overview. I'm going to be doing some much deeper dives into stuff as I move through once we've digested the overview of each of the seasons. So much to unpack, but I've made a start. What did you think? Was it a fantastic episode for you? I can't wait to unravel it more deeply a bit later on, but for now, all I can say is that's it for episode 2, and it's time to get on to watching episode 3.